Hinkley Hills, USA. Late summer. A quiet neighborhood. A tree-lined little world of front porches, barbecues, the laughter of children, and the bell of an ice cream vendor. Everything is in its proper place and right with the world. But a host of new neighbors move in next door, and no one has met them yet. The basement of the house flashes fire and bright lights throughout the night, and people have been seen digging holes in the backyard. The neighborhood grows weary. Neighbors are starting to disappear, and it's up to these suburbanites to take matters into their own hands and restore balance to the neighborhood. This is It Records. Hello, everybody. I'm one of your hosts of the podcast It Records, Matt Johnson, and with me, as always, is the magnanimous, the always charming, always has something to say, Peter Hansen.
the other host.
I love giving you these intros. I want the viewers to know how I feel.
You're just really building it up, and then like when I talk for everyone that's new, they're like, "Oh, there's not much to him."
I think you deliver. You have a human quality, and they go, "That guy, I want to hang out with that guy." That's what they're saying. I've talked to a few. I've pulled the numbers. Anyway, everybody.
You had a poll.
I did a poll, yeah. I walked the streets door to door just to see how they felt about you. They had nothing but good things. But back to our podcast, everybody, for this is It Records. We're talking horror movies, horror flicks that you want to hear us talk about. And this week we did the 1989 cult classic by director Joe Dante, The Burbs.
All Tom Hanks wanted was a quiet vacation at home.
This is what I need, Carol. I need this.
Welcome to Mayfield Place. A typical street in the Burbs.
Morning, Walter.
Where nothing much ever happened.
Walter's dog just took a dump on Rumsfield's lawn again.
Until the Klopeks moved in.
Klopex?
Klopex.
Klopek. No one goes in, no one comes out.
Neighbors from hell.
It was a nice place to live.
He said he thinks the Klopeks are evil incarnate.
Well, you're much too smart to fall for that, aren't you, honey?
But now,
Carol.
you wouldn't want to visit there.
Ray.
This is Walter.
The Burbs.
I'm going over the fence, and I'm not coming back till I find a dead body.
Ray, do you want him to take your family, kidnap them, tear their livers out, and make some kind of satanic pate? We found Walter!
We got a real problem.
I hit the gas line, I'd run!
God, I love this street.
Tom Hanks.
I think we are overreacting.
No!
The Burbs. It's one hell of a neighborhood.
Hey, honey, I think we should move.
And I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with it or not. I would say it's more of a cult movie that borders on horror and black comedy. Would you agree, Pete?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And I had, up until this podcast, never seen it. And I was unaware. I knew Hanks was in it. I knew Tom Hanks was in this leading role of the cast in this movie. The cast they had developed into this thing. I mean, you got Carrie Fisher, the young Corey Feldman in his prime, and some Bruce Dern. Can't go wrong.
Looks basically the same age, but yet younger.
Bruce Dern?
Yeah, Bruce Dern just looks like a really old, young version of himself.
That's a great way of putting it. He really does. He does look old. There's nothing to say that he's a young man in this movie, but he looks younger than what he did in Nebraska.
Yeah.
For everybody who maybe hasn't seen it, just for a quick run through of what it is, it's The Burbs. It takes place in a suburbs, as if you will. An overstressed suburbanite, that's Tom Hanks. We're following him. Two of his neighbors are struggling to prove their paranoid theory that a new family on the block is part of some murderous cult. It's really going through their head, their paranoia of if this family really is evil or if it's just their mind going crazy. Pete, I mean, what drew you to this film originally? Because I had never seen it. I always heard it was a cult movie, but what drew you to the Burbs? And I guess especially as a two-parter, as sort of a horror flick.
Yeah. So I think it was just really this Joe Dante, honestly, and I kind of forgot that Tom Hanks was in it before I watched it for the first time, which was, man, I don't even remember. I think I actually rented it from the Movie Fan. Yeah, when we were at school. So I was like, this was a time where I was just trying to get rent as many movies by all my favorite horror directors at the time, and I just really enjoy Dante because he's a really ridiculous filmmaker with his movies, and he's very knowledgeable of them too. So I like relate to that a lot, where I like to know about movies, and I just like everything that's like ridiculous. I mean, like, just look at Gremlins is the perfect testament of Dante's filmmaking.
That's true. I agree. And this was by production company was Imagine Entertainment by Universal Studios, and I was reading that's one of the reasons that they got Dante on board, because Gremlins had happened, and he had a quirky way of combining, they said, horror, reality, and comedy into an entertainment mix. That's why he was on board. And for viewers, never gonna get it. Listeners, Dante did Gremlins. What else did he do?
Small Soldiers.
Small Soldiers. I always forget he did Small Soldiers. That's
Such
right.
a great movie. Oh god.
It really. It came on Netflix over like the past month or so, and I couldn't be happier.
I watched a recent movie of his that was, I never heard of it before, but it was on like Xfinity. It was called Matinee, and it's with John Goodman. It's like from 1993, and it's like super under the radar, and it's really great. It's like another one where like it's about like a horror filmmaker, and he's got like an Alfred Hitchcock vibe to him, but also like oh man, what's his name? He's like a big horror producer of like he did so many. I can't even think of his freaking name right now. Oh my god, this is gonna kill me. I'm just gonna look.
You'll think of it as
look it up, because I know he. I'm pretty sure he produced Rock and Roll High School, which is a great movie.
Rock and Roll High School.
That's a fucking phenomenal movie right there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Roger Corman, that's his name.
Roger Corman. Okay.
He's kind of got like the blend of them too, because like Roger Corman made a bunch of like monster flicks, and that's this guy. And they even have like an Alfred Hitchcock Presents intro going on. So it's just like a movie for cinephiles, and it's just having a really good time with its effects and shit.
This one or Matinee?
Matinee, but the Burbs,
Matinee.
I think, is also doing this, reaching the same kind of heartstrings, if you will.
I do too, and that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, it got a lot of mixed reviews coming out, and still currently it's like 46% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I mean, I enjoyed it watching it. Why do you think, from critically to some people who just watched it for entertainment, there's that discrepancy, really?
Yeah, that definitely is weird to me, because I think The Burbs...
It's like 50-50.
...is definitely like... It's one of those movies that's like ahead of its time, but like you could just think of like... It's pretty much in the same taste as Gremlins, but Gremlins is more family friendly. I think Burbs is like more geared towards teenagers, or at least that was the goal, maybe.
I think so too, yeah. Especially with the pull of Corey Feldman in the movie.
And I don't even know how the fuck they got Tom Hanks, which is just always a pleasure.
There's some scenes he's cracking me up in here, especially when they find the bone, and it's like the camera like pans in, zooms in and out real quick, and he's doing his classic Tom Hanks scream.
Oh god.
Where he's like, ah!
He's great. He's great in this fucking movie. He
really is. He even improvised. I was reading the scene at the end where he goes on this rant. Just for everybody, spoilers. They think their neighbors are this murderous cult. and they go through all these lengths to figure it out. And Tom Hanks has this sort of monologue at the end where he's like, "We're the villains. Like we're the bad guys as these crazy suburban people, leering into people's houses and getting all paranoid." And it's good and it's funny. He's got these huge bandages on, and apparently he improvised where he puts himself on the gurney and shoves himself into the ambulance and just sits there. You remember that? And Carrie Fisher's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Oh, that's good.
But I have a side conversation for 1 second because you texted me the other day saying that you met Corey Feldman and you didn't fucking talk about the Burbs at all with him. Such a huge missed opportunity.
It was, but I couldn't have gotten any sort of recording in there. It was what the scenario was. My local theater here, they do a Turner Classic Movie Night every Tuesday. This week was Goonies. And they happened to pull in, I don't know how, my local movie theater pulled in Corey fucking Feldman.
I mean,
Corey Feldman.
not to be mean, but I don't think he's doing too much right now.
I'm sure, I don't think he's done anything. I think the 80s was his heyday, and maybe a little in the 90s, but yeah, he hasn't been doing anything in a while. I know he came out with a memoir called Choreography.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. No, but I just didn't ask him anything. He had a line of people for like an hour that was really backed up, and you could sign something, so couldn't really talk about the movie. And
you could just be like,
I wish I could have
just been like, "Hey Corey, I saw Burbs. Give him a thumbs up," and that's all you needed to do.
I just watched the Burbs, bro. Yeah. But it was really cool to see him. I mean, it's weird to see him really at my local movie theater.
As an adult, because I feel like every time I see him, he's always like between the ages of 12 and 18.
Yeah. Or if you go even younger for Friday the 13th, final chapter.
Oh yeah, how old is he in
He's
that
in
movie?
I don't know, he's really little. I think he's even younger in Gremlins. In Gremlins, he's been with Joe Dante, which is the Burbs as well. He's like 3 in Gremlins. He's a little kid.
God.
He's like super young in that movie.
Such star power back then.
Yeah. Jeez. But Pete, going along with the Burbs here, we're a horror podcast, and it's really like, I mean, it has those elements, but what do you see that really sticks out for it to be a horror flick?
Yeah, it definitely plays on like the comedy side a lot, but it definitely
Sure.
I think a lot of that funny parts comes from the knowledge of horror movies and the fact that Joe Dante is very familiar with that genre, and I wouldn't say there's anything particularly scary, but that doesn't mean it's not a horror movie because it's not scary. But I think it plays into a lot of things a horror movie would face, if that makes any sense. Like with
No, it does.
like the plot and like how, you know, characters come together and try and take on what they think is this evil force, which I think is like the heart and soul of a horror movie.
Yeah, and it really is for this movie as well. And they use a lot of like, it's a good way you put it, where Dante's like familiar with the genre, and a lot of the stuff that's in the genre is kind of maybe poking fun at it. But the house, the Koplex house, which is the mysterious family, is very like Gothic architecture. The lightning's around it. It's almost like a Frankenstein monster type feel. What are they doing in the basement? But they really conjure up the horror in their heads. I mean, because you don't really see anything for a good portion of it, but they're talking about these suburban stories of the guy who had the ice cream truck or whatever, who murdered his family, and what could they be doing in the basement? And they're telling all these tales. You don't really see it; they're just making it up in their heads, which leads to the climate.
I was gonna say it's like a great like example of like urban legends like freaking out like children. You know, when we're like little kids, we always like had a house on the block that's like, oh, that's where the killer lives, or some shit like that.
Exactly. It was. I thought I was really good at doing that. And with Dante's works, at least with like Small Soldiers, he tries to do like satirical stuff. I feel like, which was right on the head here with just the whole suburbanites and creating their own terror and when nothing's really going on, which leads to the Tom Hanks monologue, which is great. If just YouTube that if you get a chance, if you want to watch all of the Burbs.
Which character
Little things
do you
about
think
this.
killed it the most?
Go ahead. Oh, killed it
Yeah.
the most? Oh, that's a tough. You see, I think Hanks was great. I think Hanks is a great performance, but I was cracking up more and more at Bruce Dern, which I've told you. His lines were doing it for me. Where I think, for instance, he's a military man next door, and he's up on top of his roof, decked out in all of his stuff with his gun, look out for everybody. And Feldman calls over, "Hey, what are you doing?" And all he goes is, "Why don't you paint your fucking porch and shut up?" Just cracks me up the whole time.
You know,
Who would you say
who Bruce
killed it
Dern
for you?
reminded me of? The next door neighbor in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Like, I mean, not like,
Okay.
but like just how like their attitudes are. Cause wasn't he like a military dad too?
Mhm. Yeah, he was. Yeah, I could see it. I could definitely see the connection.
But what were you gonna say?
Oh no, that was basically it. Oh, before you said who killed it?
No, before I said that he reminded me of the dad from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh. No, that was basically it. That's all I was gonna say on it. This movie though, it reminded me a lot of. You're a Twilight Zone fan,
Oh,
right,
of
Pete?
course.
Okay, and I'm sure we have some Twilight fan listeners as well. I think it's called The Monsters Come to Maple. Is that the name of the
You talking about
the episode?
on Maple Street episode?
The Monsters Come to Maple Street?
Something
Yeah.
like that. It's a fucking classic episode, but I just can't remember the name of it.
Yeah. It reminds me of the same thing.
Oh, that's a really good comparison, actually.
It's kind of, yeah, they all kind of, they're all trying to get in the cellar, they're all in the house, and basically they're fighting over who should be in there, and they're creating all these things in their head on what's outside the house, and it becomes this sort of microcosm of society within it. And it's kind of like here, they create their own terror in their little safe little environment. I think the Twilight Zone was a little better in doing it, but it has the same feel. It's the same kind of idea. And another interesting thing about the set of this film, all shot on the Universal lot. Do you know that?
I saw a little trivia there, but I didn't know that.
So it was all shot on the studio. They created a neighborhood because that's what Dante wanted. He said he felt keeping it within, I guess, one studio and one lot, like it was its own cul-de-sac, would just feel more vibrant and alive. So they made it during the writer's strike of '88. So they shot the movie all in sequentially. That's what in sequence means.
Thank you for the
chronologically.
little vocab lesson.
I'm just kind of spitballing them. Sound like an idiot. Anyway, some tidbits about that. You saw it said Mayfield at the very beginning. Their neighborhood's called Hinkley Hills. I'm sorry, the town is Hinkley Hills, but they live in Mayfield, the suburb. That's Leave It to Beaver. And this is the Leave It to Beaver lot
Oh,
from the old show.
that's cool.
And then to add to that, I believe it's who's the neighbor who's kind of who Hanks first meets. Not Dern. I don't know that actor's name. I forget him. You know, who I'm
Oh.
not Feldman, not
Are
Dern.
you
The other
talking
guy,
about
his neighbor.
the nerdier one?
Yeah, not Walter who gets
Yeah,
kidnapped.
I'm looking
but
at his name right
we're,
now.
We're the same page.
Is
Okay.
it Rick Dukemoon? God, I can't
Yes, that's him.
say his last name.
It would be him. He's the neighbor. His house is the Munsters' house.
Great show.
From the TV show. Yeah, which is they said they barely showed it straight on because of what people would recognize the house, so they just showed it from like the roof and the window. Was the only time you ever saw his house. And then the Coplex is still on the Universal lot to this day. And was used. Is Desperate Housewives still on? If it is, it was one of the main houses in Desperate Housewives. All from the Burbs.
That's a lot of trivia you had there.
I did my research. I was ready to film this.
Do you find
but-
this film criminally underrated?
Criminally underrated?
Or just underrated?
I would go underrated. I wouldn't say criminally underrated. I think there's some... it could have been tighter. It could have... I don't know. It just seemed a little loose, and it was fun and it was canny, but I do say underrated. I do say underrated. People should definitely say
I had a
Burbs.
fucking great time watching this movie. It's such a
Yeah.
such a treat. I always enjoy a good like a good movie where it is like guys just like band together and like come up with little contraptions and shit. I don't know. I guess it like
Yeah.
kind of like ties to my little kid in me where I just like to build and shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just kind of reminds me of that, and I'm always sucker for those movies.
Especially in the neighborhood setting, I
Yeah.
guess. Growing up in like a neighborhood with,
I mean, I grew up in
your neighbors.
the suburbs, so
Yeah.
that even rings.
You can
yeah,
relate
it
to
rings
the...
even more true for me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely think it's underrated. I think people don't talk about it enough, and it gets a mixed review, but it's a fun movie. It's really entertaining. It has all those elements. If you like the feel of like Gremlins, I guess. Gremlins are small soldiers, which people are more familiar with. If you like that feel, you'll enjoy the Burbs. It's that same kind of horror reality entertainment piece. But Pete, speaking as if we think it's underrated, overrated, blah blah blah, how do you think it did when it came out in '89?
Well, I know it made money.
Box office.
I know it made money.
It made a shit ton of money. It was number one in the box office opening weekend, and it made like, I have it here.
What'd it go against? Do you have that little tidbit of information?
I believe I do. It had... Oh, shit. No. Opened at number one at $11 million in the opening weekend. And the film made, as a whole, $49 million on a budget of $18 million. What would it came out in February of '89?
Same year, I'm looking at like the IMDb page, and it's like people who also liked, and then Turner and Hooch is on there, and that came out the same year. So Tom Hanks was quite busy that year.
Yeah, I got all the movies that came out that. Wow.
Let's see here.
The Burbs in '89 was the 34th highest grossing movie. Ahead of Weekend at Bernie's, which people know, Do the Right Thing, Glory.
Was it? Wait, it came out the same month as Glory?
No, I'm saying for the whole
for
year.
the whole year. I was like, that's a really.
It grossed.
I was like, that's really random. What can I say about this movie that hasn't been said? It's just.
I mean, I mentioned the Twilight Zone, and it kind of has that feel a little bit. The premise of it, maybe because it reminds me of the monsters on Maple, but it's quick. It's a very quick movie. Was it like an hour and 20-something minutes? What?
It's an hour and 40.
Well, then
actually.
that even adds to my idea. It's quick. The pacing's good.
Just throwing out compliments
I
for the movie.
liked it. No, I was going to add to the horror element because, as we were just talking about, we've done some that are like Torso, which are just more straight horror, and this one kind of blurs the line like completely, I feel like. But it has that architecture, it has that evil force premise in the neighborhood. But I think what even brings it all home is the ending, and I don't want to spoil it too much, but you get his monologue of "We're the villains," which would have been the ending of a satirical movie, a comedy, but then it goes a step further, and when he's in the ambulance, the Koplex, the main Koplex head of the family, reveals his whole plan, and he's going to kill Tom Hanks. And he pulls out the injection needle, and the ambulance is going crazy down the street. and he's got a bunch of skulls and bones in the bottom of in his trunk. So I mean, I think that brings it home as the horror. They stopped the villain. There was really murders going on. They killed the next door neighbors. So
Yeah, I feel like that. I think either way, I think it would have been a good ending. Like they could end it either way, and I think it would have been funny. But I was like kind of glad that it was like validated a little bit.
It just didn't feel like they'd strung you along this whole time on this whole conspiracy theory, and then it's like, yeah, there's nothing. These guys are just crazy. They were making it all up in their heads.
I think that would work more. It would work more as a comedy. Because would like, since it did blur the line, it kind of like played the line perfectly, and catered to both sides pretty well. I thought.
I do too.
Was there any on-screen deaths? I don't remember.
There were none. No on-screen deaths. You see them digging graves and like him trying to kill Tom Hanks. You see the skull and bones in a trunk, but and you see some bones, but no actual deaths, I believe.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought there were none, but I was like, am I forgetting one?
I don't think so. There was as a horror podcast, there was a salute to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist, and I thought something else in this movie.
You talk about
Tom Hanks' dream sequence when he watches the TV before bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's also Corey Feldman like makes a reference to the Sentinel too.
Oh, does he?
Where he's talking about I think he's talking about the house or something, and the Sentinel's from the 70s. It's about like someone watching over like an apartment kind of deal.
Yeah.
So it's like a mysterious figure. It's like right in the beginning, and Corey Feldman's like all teenager, like he's like, let's get this guy. He's got his bandana on and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's just really funny.
Oh.
Let's get this guy.
He was great. He was like so spacey and so like, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure you didn't even say that, but that's just like the perfect impression that I have for him. Let's go ahead and just get this guy.
It sounds like something that character would say. He has a pizza party for his friends to come over and watch the neighbors.
Oh yeah, that was great.
All right, Pete. Well, now we've talked about the Burbs. I think we've kind of hit how we feel about it. But would you defend or destroy the Burbs?
Oh, I wholeheartily defend this movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you there. I'm gonna have to defend it. It's first time viewing. It's not a magnum opus or anything, but it's good. It's fun. It's entertaining.
Not a magnum opus.
It's no Apocalypse Now, but
Get out of here.
no, it's good. It's entertaining. It's fun. It's funny, and it's I recommend it.
It's no Armani suit.
It's no top shelf liquor. It's not first class on a plane. But you know, it gets you from A to B.
All right, that's enough. That's enough analogies.
Oh yeah. Well, that being said, I guess that will conclude this week's talk on the Burbs. Go check it out. It's on Netflix. You can watch it for free if you have a subscription there. Check us out on the website. We'll have our blogs going, our forums. Let us know what you're thinking. Twitter, our Facebook. We want to know what you like so we can deliver it to you. That's what this podcast is for. We should have a mini episode out soon. It's been a while since we've done one of those, so we'll get a mini episode out as soon as we can. And I hate the Coplex. And with that, as always, I remain in the shadows.
Are you gonna say your name?
I'm Peter Hansen.
You definitely threw me off for that
no,
one.
I'm Rain in the Shadows. I'm Matt Johnson, everybody.
All right, I'm Peter Hansen.
Bada bing, bada boom.